Regardless of the result, November will see the oldest elected president in U.S. history. But what can their long careers tell us about the next 4 years? Joe Biden became the 5th youngest person elected to join the Senate when he took office at the age of 29. He was sworn in at the hospital bedside of his son, Beau, after his first wife and daughter were killed in a car accident. Known as Middle-Class Joe, his campaign positioned him as a rising star up against a popular Republican incumbent. Biden's home state of Delaware owed much of its prosperity to its willingness to change policies to attract big business.
See, I went to the big guys for the money. I was ready to prostitute myself.
But by the late 1970s, the state's economy was struggling. The young senator doubled down on the state's calling card as a corporate bankruptcy hub to try to revitalize its economy. But by deregulating the banking industry, it made it harder for Americans to escape debt. Meanwhile, Donald Trump was well on his way to becoming a fixture of New York's real estate market. The year after Biden was elected to the Senate, 1973, Donald Trump entered a legal battle with the government over accusations of discrimination against black tenants, emphasizing that there was no admission of guilt on his part. Like New York, the business transitioned from gritty housing projects to glamorous glass towers from the 1970s to the 1980s, with Trump's profile growing along with it. Over the next decade, Trump became a tabloid fixture. He started to create a brand for himself as the Donald. His current positions are all consistent with the worldview he shared in the 1980s.
This country is being taken such advantage of.
I was tired, and I think a lot of people are tired of watching other countries ripping off the United States. This is a great country. They laugh at us. Behind our backs, they laugh at us.
In fact, in 1987, he spent nearly $100,000 to place an ad criticizing U.S. foreign policy in several major newspapers.
What would you do differently, Donald?
I'd make our allies, forgetting about the enemies you can't talk to so easily, I'd make our allies pay their fair share.
This sounds like political presidential talk to me, and I know people have talked to you about whether or not you want to run. Would you ever?
Probably not.
Still a senator, the result of Biden's push for deregulation was a corporate gold rush. Biden started to personify the local political culture, which has its own name, the Delaware Way. It's best described as a willingness to put aside partisanship for the good of the state, which often meant cultivating business. Biden ran for president for the first time in 1988, but quit the race after being accused of plagiarism for incorporating speeches from other politicians.
The health of our children, the quality of their education, for the joy of their play.
I did not know that was a Robert Kennedy quote. My mistake.
He became a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Biden helped push through tough crime legislation, laying the groundwork for mass incarceration that has since devastated America's black community.
Every major crime bill since 1976 that's come out of this Congress, every minor crime bill has had the name of the Democratic senator from the state of Delaware, Joe Biden.
While this policy was popular at the time, Biden has since shown remorse when public perceptions changed.
We need real police reform that hold cops to a higher standard.
This is part of a pattern. He was criticized for not doing enough to protect Anita Hill, a woman who gave evidence that she was sexually harassed by Supreme Court nominee Clarence Thomas. Biden later co-sponsored the landmark Violence Against Women Act, which passed in 1994.
In passing the Violence Against Women Act, we'll take an important step toward ending the cycle of terror and violence which marks the lives of so many American women.
Trump was preoccupied with rebuilding a fortune he had lost after several of his businesses failed.
First of all, are you solvent?
I had a miserable year last year along with everybody else in the real estate industry.
He blamed it on a tax reform introduced by the Reagan administration.
The politicians destroyed the economy in 1986. When they passed a tax law that just destroyed the real estate industry.
Trump even went to lobby against it in Congress, eventually reversing it. Trump rebranded himself on his show, The Apprentice. He used his increased profile to seek a nomination from the Reform Party.
Well, I think I represent values very well, and I think I would represent the Reform Party very well.
But he was unsuccessful and withdrew. In his 3 decades as a senator, Joe Biden developed a reputation for bipartisanship. guided by the Delaware way. His relationships appealed to Barack Obama, who picked him as his running mate after Biden stepped down as a presidential candidate for the second time in 2008. He became vice president and raised his profile by forging a close working relationship with Obama.
The Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Trump used his fame to move forward the birther movement, sparking a feud between him and Obama.
But no one is happier, no one is prouder to put this birth certificate matter to rest than the Donald.
The attention put Donald Trump on the political map, exploiting widespread backlash among conservatives against the country's first black president.
Well, a lot of people want me to run, and a lot of people want to see a different approach, and my approach would be different.
On Election Day, America's voters will have to decide whether to re-elect a president who consistently blames others for his shortcomings, both in business and in politics, or the former vice president, who is saddled with a reputation of constantly shifting his position to maintain his popularity.